The frozen discovery, the wind howled across the snow-covered plains, carrying a chill so sharp it cut through even the thickest layers of clothing. The human trudged forward, each step sinking into the icy ground, his boots heavy with snow. The landscape stretched endlessly in every direction, white, cold, and silent except for the roar of the wind. Visibility was almost zero, and every shadow seemed like it could hide danger. He had been exploring this planet for days, searching for signs of life, but until now, all he had found were frozen rocks and empty valleys. Yet something inside him told him he was not alone. Something unusual. Something alive. Then, through the swirling snow, he saw a faint movement. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, a shadow shaped by the gusts of wind. But as he drew closer, the movement became clearer, a small, fragile figure lying in the snow, barely moving. His heart skipped a beat. He ran the last few meters and knelt beside the figure. It was an alien, her skin a pale blue with faint glowing lines running across her arms and face. She shivered violently, curling around something small. And then he saw them, two tiny newborns pressed against her chest, their eyes closed, their bodies almost translucent in the cold. The human's chest tightened. The mother alien's breath came in short, raspy gasps, each one visible in the freezing air. He could see frost forming on her lashes, her hands trembling as she tried to hold the twins close. Whoever had left her here had shown no mercy, abandoning her in the snow with her helpless children. He knelt beside them, speaking softly, even though he doubted she could understand. "I'm here. You're not alone anymore," he said. His voice was swallowed by the wind, but somehow it seemed to reach her. Her glowing eyes flickered weakly, filled with a mix of fear, pain, and desperate hope. Time was critical. He quickly pulled off his coat and wrapped it around the mother and her twins, using every bit of warmth he had to shield them from the freezing wind. The snow whipped around them, and he felt the sharp sting of ice against his face, but he could not stop. Not now, not ever. The mother alien looked up at him, her eyes wide and pleading. She whispered something in a language he could not understand, but the emotion was clear. "Help. Please." Her fragile fingers brushed his arm, trusting him completely. He could feel her strength fading with every passing second. "Hang on," he murmured, lifting her carefully into his arms. The twins pressed closer to her chest, their tiny bodies shaking. He wrapped them in extra layers of fabric, holding them as close as he could, feeling the weak warmth of life against his skin. Suddenly, a howl echoed through the wind, a predator. Maybe more than one, drawn by the smell of life. The human's heart pounded, but he didn't hesitate. He adjusted his grip and started moving, each step a battle against the snow and the growing storm. Every second counted. The mother alien clung to him weakly, her glowing eyes flickering, while the twins whimpered softly, tiny cries almost lost in the storm. He scanned the horizon desperately for shelter, anything that could protect them from the blizzard and the approaching danger. A jagged outcrop of rocks appeared in the distance, forming a natural alcove. He staggered toward it, muscles burning from the effort, snow filling his eyes and lungs. As he reached the rocky alcove, he laid the mother and twins down gently, still covering them with his coat. He could feel the frost biting into his own skin, but he ignored the pain. Survival was no longer about him, it was about them. The mother alien's eyes met his once more, glowing faintly in the dim light. A soft whisper left her lips, full of hope and trust. The human realized something powerful. This tiny family, abandoned and left to die, had just found a protector. And he had just found a purpose far greater than anything he had imagined. The wind roared, the snow whipped violently, and the world around them seemed merciless. But inside the alcove, in the fragile warmth they shared, there was life. And for the first time in days, the human felt a spark of hope. He looked down at the twins, glowing faintly against the white snow, and whispered, "We'll make it. I promise. I won't let anything happen to you." Outside, the storm raged on, and shadows shifted in the snow. Danger was still near, and the night was far from over. But inside the small alcove, the human, the alien mother, and her newborn twins had survived the first test of their story. And this was only the beginning. The risky rescue, the storm raged on, whipping the snow into wild patterns that blinded the human as he struggled through the frozen wasteland. Every step was a fight. The cold seeped into his bones, threatening to slow him down. Yet he refused to stop. The alien mother and her newborn twins were fragile, their lives balanced on a knife's edge. He could feel the warmth of the mother's weak body against his chest, hear the faint whimpers of her tiny offspring. He had to get them to safety. Ahead, a jagged cliff loomed, its rocky face offering potential shelter. But the path was treacherous. Ice-covered ledges and sharp outcrops made every step a risk. One misstep could send them all tumbling into the frozen abyss. Still, he pressed forward, gripping the mother tightly and adjusting the bundle of twins in his arms. Then came the first sign of danger beyond the storm. A faint rustling echoed through the snow, low and deliberate. His heart tightened. Predators, native creatures of this icy world, were drawn to movement, to warmth. They moved silently, stalking through the storm, their glowing eyes visible only in flashes as snow drifted past. The human froze for a moment, listening, every muscle tensed. He whispered to the mother alien, "Stay still. Don't make a sound." She obeyed instinctively, curling around her twins, their small bodies trembling. Her glowing lines shimmered faintly, pulsing in rhythm with her shallow breaths. He could feel the bond forming between them. They trusted him, even in this life-threatening moment. The first predator appeared on a ridge above, a massive creature with icy scales and jagged teeth glinting in the dim light. It growled, a low rumble that echoed across the frozen plains. The human tightened his grip, scanning for a safe route. The cliffside offered a narrow ledge, a dangerous path, but their only chance. Carefully, he began the ascent, placing one foot in front of the other, testing the ice before committing his weight. The mother's hand brushed his arm, trembling but steady. Her eyes met his briefly, a silent plea and a spark of trust. The twins whimpered softly, tiny noises almost lost in the roaring wind. Halfway along the ledge, a patch of ice gave way underfoot. He stumbled but caught himself, heart racing. The predator roared in frustration and lunged downward, claws scraping against the rock. The human froze for a heartbeat, then forced himself to move faster, climbing with all his strength. His fingers were numb, the ice cutting into them, but he could not drop them. Not now. The mother alien hissed softly, almost instinctively, and the twins' faint glow flickered. The predator hesitated for a moment, sensing something unfamiliar. The human realized the alien mother wasn't just fragile, she had latent powers. He didn't understand them yet, but her presence, even weakened, kept the predator cautious. Finally, they reached a narrow alcove carved into the cliff, shielded partially from the storm. He laid them down gently, snow crunching beneath him. The mother and twins were covered in layers of fabric, but the cold still bit at their skin. The human wrapped his own coat around them, pressing them close. Outside, the predator circled the cliff edge, growling, its glowing eyes scanning for movement. The human's heart pounded. They were safe for now, but only just. He knew the creature would return, and more dangers would follow. The mother alien touched his hand with a trembling finger, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you." "Human," she murmured, her alien language strange to his ears, but the meaning clear. She trusted him with her life and the life of her children. The human looked down at the twins, their faint glow flickering in the icy light. "We're not safe yet," he said. voice low but determined. "But we'll make it. I promise." The storm howled louder, snow whipping against the cliffside, but inside the small alcove, a fragile warmth remained. They had survived the blizzard, the predators, and the frozen wasteland for now. The human knew the path ahead would be even harder, but he also knew one thing. He could not leave them behind. Somewhere beyond the storm, danger waited. But here, in this precarious alcove, the alien mother, her twins, and the human had begun a bond that could withstand any threat. And for the first time, the human felt the weight of responsibility and the spark of purpose that would drive them all forward. The wind roared. Shadows shifted, and the story of survival, trust, and courage had only just begun. Elias stood near the old heater, watching the alien mother rest. Snowy light filtered through the small window, casting soft shadows over the room. The twins slept in a basket of blankets he had patched together. Their tiny breaths were warm clouds in the cold air. But the mother Soraya did not sleep peacefully. She kept waking, her eyes full of fear and confusion. She did not know his language, but she understood enough to stay tense. After all, the last people she had trusted had left her dying in the snow. Elias kept his hands open and his voice gentle whenever he came close. "Easy," he said softly. "You're safe here." Soraya watched his movements closely, always protective of her newborns. She had survived freezing winds. She had survived betrayal. She was not ready to trust a human, not yet, but she watched him feed the twins with careful hands. She watched him bring warm water again and again. And slowly her breathing eased, even if her guard did not fully drop. A strange language. And a connection. Elias had spent hours studying alien survival records from past encounters. He finally found a translator old, glitchy, and barely functional. But it gave him one word from Soraya's language, Sayal. It meant danger. She had whispered it when he touched her injured leg. Elias nodded. "Okay," he whispered, pointing at her wound. "Danger. I know. I will help." Soraya didn't understand all his words, but she recognized the tone. And she recognized something else too, the steady beat of a heart that meant no harm. She let him clean the wound a little longer this time. It wasn't trust yet. But it was the first crack in her fear. Outside. The world was changing while Elias focused on saving the 3 lives inside his cabin. Something else was happening in the mountains. Strange tracks had appeared in the snow, large oval prints with claw marks. Elias spotted them when he went out to gather firewood. They circled his cabin. Something had been watching. He swallowed hard. These are not human tracks. He remembered the stories mountain predators mutated by alien spores centuries ago. They were rare, but not impossible. He rushed back inside and locked the door. Soraya watched him, sensing the tension. Elias didn't want to frighten her more, so he kept his voice calm as he whispered, "We may not be alone out here." A weak voice speaks hours later, when the wind died down. Soraya spoke her first clear word since he had found her. "Why?" "Help?" she whispered. Her accent was heavy, her voice fragile. Elias froze. She could speak his language just barely. He sat beside the fire, choosing his words carefully. "Because no one deserves to die in the snow," he said softly. "Not you. Not your babies." Soraya lowered her eyes. Her people did not receive kindness from humans. Not for many years. She had expected fear, anger, or greed. Never compassion. She placed a hand over her heart. "Soraya," she said. "My name," Elias smiled gently. "Soraya. I'm Elias." It was the first real moment between them, quiet, fragile, and warm. The twins stir. One of the twins began to cry. Soraya tried to sit up quickly, but pain shot through her body. She winced, collapsing back onto the pillow. Elias hurried over. "I've got him," he whispered. He lifted the tiny alien infant with steady hands. The baby's skin was soft lavender, glowing slightly under the warm lamplight. Elias rocked him gently until the crying softened into small hiccups. Soraya watched with wide eyes. No human had ever held a newborn of her kind without fear or disgust. "You? Not afraid?" she whispered. Elias shook his head. "They're just babies. They need care." Something deep inside Soraya shifted, something that had almost died on that frozen path. Hope nightfall brings. New danger as darkness sank over the mountains. A slow scratching sound echoed against the cabin walls. Elias looked up sharply. Soraya's eyes widened. Her instincts were strong. Her body tensed immediately. She gathered the twins close. Elias stepped toward the door, gripping the old rifle he kept for emergencies. Snow drifted under the moonlight outside. The scratching came again. Something was out there. Something hungry. Something patient. Soraya whispered the same word he had learned earlier. "Seal." Danger. Elias nodded slowly. This night was far from over. The scratching sound grew louder. Elias stood frozen near the door, rifle in hand. The old wood trembled slightly with every scrape. Snowflakes drifted past the window, glowing under the moonlight. But behind that soft beauty, something big moved in the darkness. Soraya held her twins tightly, her breath fast and sharp. Her eyes glowed faintly in fear. She whispered, "Not human. Not animal. Something worse." Elias didn't know what hunted outside, but every instinct told him the same thing. They were trapped. The creature scratched again, circling the cabin slowly, big, heavy, hungry, something that had followed the scent of a weak mother and newborns. The first attack without warning. The creature slammed into the side of the cabin. Boom. The entire wall shook. Snow fell from the ceiling rafters. Elias grabbed a lantern and held it up. Dust dropped from the wood beams. "Stay back." He shouted toward Soraya. She nodded, her arms wrapped around the babies. Her legs were still too weak to stand, but her spirit was strong. She pressed herself against the far wall, eyes burning with fear and fury. Another hit followed. Boom. This time, the window cracked. Elias felt cold air leak in. "We can't stay here," he muttered. "If it breaks through, we're done." But where could they go? The storm outside was still raging, and Soraya was too weak to walk even a few steps. The creature slammed into the wall again. Its claws scraped against the wood, carving long lines. Elias swallowed hard. He needed a plan fast. Soraya reveals the truth as the cabin shook again. Soraya suddenly spoke. "My people. Hunted by this beast," she whispered. "It follows scent of birth. It knows newborns cannot run." Elias felt a chill deeper than the snowstorm. "So it came for the twins?" he asked. Soraya nodded sharply. "It always comes. It killed many of us in the mountains. My tribe left me because I slowed them. But this creature, it was coming anyway." Elias stared at her. "So they abandoned you, knowing this thing was after you?" Her eyes filled with pain, but she nodded again. Elias tightened his grip on the rifle. "Not tonight," he said. "Not while I'm alive." The plan. He checked the cabin again. The door was strong, but not strong enough. The walls were old. The windows were already cracked. They had maybe 5 more minutes, 10 at best. Elias turned to Soraya. "Can you hold one baby?" She hesitated, then nodded and forced her body upright, bracing herself against the wall. Elias grabbed rope, old chairs, and 2 thick blankets. He worked quickly, blocking the window with furniture. Then he turned to the back of the cabin and moved aside a large crate. Behind it was a hidden trap door. Soraya's eyes widened. "You hide here?" Elias shook his head. "No, you hide. It opens into an old root cellar. Cold, but safe. Deep underground. Soraya clutched the twins tighter. What about you? Elias forced a crooked smile. I'll distract it. I've done crazier things. But Soraya looked straight into his eyes. She saw something she didn't expect, fear controlled only by determination. He was not a fighter, not a soldier. He was simply a human trying to protect lives he had no obligation to save. She whispered, "You do not have to do this." Elias responded simply, "Yeah, but I will." The final seconds, another crash shook the cabin. This time, a claw ripped straight through the wood. Soraya gasped. The creature was getting inside. Elias opened the trapdoor. Cold air rose from below. "Hurry," he urged. Soraya moved slowly, wincing with every step. She descended into the darkness, holding both infants close to her chest. Before she went fully down, she placed a trembling hand on Elias's arm. "You are. Strange human," she whispered. "You protect what is not yours." Elias swallowed. "They are now." He shut the trapdoor and dragged the crate back on top. The cabin shook again. The door bent inward. Elias stepped away from the trapdoor, holding the rifle tight. The creature was about to break in. His heart pounded. But he stood his ground. "If you want them," Elias whispered, "you'll go through me." The door splintered. A shadow loomed. The creature roared, and the fight for all their lives began. The door finally gave way. With a deafening crack, the wooden frame split apart and a massive shape pushed into the cabin. Snow burst inward like exploding dust. Wind roared through the opening. The lantern flame shivered violently. Elias raised his rifle. The creature stepped into the weak light. It was bigger than he. Imagine taller than a man. Covered in thick white fur that blended perfectly with the snowy mountains. Its long arms ended in claws sharp enough to slice through frozen wood. Its eyes were glowing blue, like cold fire. And its teeth, long, pale, and curved like ice hooks. It sniffed the air. Looking for the newborn scent, looking for Soraya. Elias didn't give it time. He fired. The first clash, the shot hit the creature's shoulder. Snow-white fur turned red. But instead of retreating, the monster roared so loud the cabin wall shook. Elias staggered back. The creature lunged. Elias threw himself to the side. Claws smashed into the wall, tearing deep grooves into the wood. Snow fell across the floor. The cold grew stronger. Elias fired again, hitting the beast in the chest. Still not enough. This thing wasn't an animal. It was a mountain predator, made to survive storms, avalanches, and ancient battles with Soraya's people. Elias had only a rifle and a heartbeat full of fear, but fear kept him alive, holding the line. The GFM creature swung a massive arm toward Elias. He ducked behind the table, which shattered like thin ice as the claws smashed through it. Elias rolled on the floor, coughing on dust and snow. "Come on," he muttered. "Come after me." Not them. He grabbed a burning piece of the broken lantern and waved it. Fire. Maybe. The thing feared flame. The creature hesitated for 1 second. Barely a breath, enough for Elias to run. He jumped behind the main support beam as the predator lunged again. The claws ripped through the air where he had been. Standing a moment earlier, the beam cracked but held. Barely. The creature sniffs the floor. The creature paused. Suddenly. It lowered its head to the floorboards. It sniffed. It had found the scent again. The babies. Elias's stomach dropped. "Not good," he whispered. The creature followed the scent trail across the room, straight toward the hidden trapdoor. If it broke through, the root cellar would be a tomb. Elias ran toward the beast and kicked. a metal pot across the room to get its attention. "Hey, Ice Face," he shouted. "Over here." The pot clanged loudly. The creature snapped its head toward Elias and roared again. It charged. Elias braced himself, lifting the rifle not as a weapon but like a shield. The creature's claw slammed into the rifle, sending it flying across the room. The metal clattered against the wall. Elias lost his breath and fell back, sliding across the floor. The monster towered over him. Desperation. Elias looked around quickly. He grabbed a splintered table, leg jagged, broken, but sharp, not a weapon. But better than nothing. The creature leaned down, jaws wide. Elias stabbed upward with everything he had. The wood piece jabbed into the creature's mouth. It roared in pain, blood splattering onto the snow-covered floor. Elias scrambled to his feet, lungs burning, muscles shaking. The creature stumbled back, but only for a moment. It recovered. It grew angrier. Elias whispered to himself, "I can't die. I can't leave them." He grabbed a heavy iron skillet from the broken stove and swung it hard. Clang. The creature's head jerked to the side. Stunned. Elias swung again, putting all his fear, anger, and desperation into it. Clang. The creature fell to one knee. The final strike. Elias didn't stop. He couldn't stop. He forced himself to run past the monster. Lunging for the dropped rifle on the floor, he grabbed it, spun, and aimed at the creature's head. "This is for them," he whispered. He fired. The creature collapsed, its huge body shaking the floor as it fell. Silence filled the cabin. Elias gasped for air, his arms trembling. His heart hammered painfully. The creature lay still. Elias waited. He had seen animals fake death before. After several long seconds, he lowered the rifle. "It's over," he breathed, but it WSN single quotes to because from beneath the floorboards, Saraya whispered faintly, "Elias, there is more danger coming." Elias stayed still for several seconds, staring at the dead creature. His breath fogged in the freezing air. His muscles shook not only from exhaustion, but from fear. He had never fought something like this. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hunter. He was just a human who refused to let a mother and her newborns die. Then he heard Saraya's weak voice from beneath the floor. "Elias, please hurry." He forced his legs to move and pushed the broken furniture aside. He lifted the trapdoor. Cold air rose from the darkness below, and Saraya looked up with wide, frightened eyes. "It is dead," she whispered. "You killed it." Elias nodded, breathless. "Yeah, but you said there is more?" Saraya swallowed hard. "Yes, more danger. Much more." Elias helped her climb out, carefully lifting the twins wrapped inside the blankets. Saraya stumbled, still weak, and Elias guided her to sit near the fire. Snow blew through the shattered cabin wall, but the flames still burned enough to give them a little warmth. "What danger?" Elias asked. Saraya hugged her babies tightly. Her voice shook. "That creature. It does not hunt alone." Elias froze. "What do you mean?" "There are others," she said softly. "A pack, sometimes 3, sometimes 5. The biggest one comes first. The followers come later when scent is strong." Elias looked at the broken wall. Snow drifted inside in small waves. "How long do we have?" he asked quietly. Saraya closed her eyes and listened, her alien senses sharp even in weakness. "Not long," she whispered. "They move fast when they smell blood." Elias felt a sickness in his stomach. Blood covered the floor. Creature blood. His blood, dust, splinters. A trail of violence that any predator could follow. He looked at the dead beast again. One was hard enough. More? They wouldn't survive. A desperate escape. "We have to leave," Elias said firmly. "In this storm?" Saraya asked, fear rising. The snow will freeze the babies. If we stay, Elias replied, the creatures will kill all of us. Soraya looked at her newborns. Their small bodies moved weakly in her arms. Their heat was small, fragile. Any cold wind could rob them of life. But Elias was right. They had to move. Elias grabbed coats, blankets, and anything warm. He wrapped Soraya gently, then wrapped the babies inside a thick fur cloak. He loaded supplies into a canvas bag: food, matches, rope, a small hatchet. Soraya watched him, her eyes soft. "You risk everything for strangers," she whispered. Elias gave a short, tired smile. "You're not strangers anymore." He grabbed the rifle with shaking hands. Then he helped Soraya stand. She leaned on him for support. Into the storm, the wind outside hit them like a wall. Snow swirled in wild circles, tearing at their faces. Elias shielded Soraya with his arm as they stepped out into the dark, frozen world. The mountains loomed like giant shadows. The storm screamed around them. Every breath felt like ice in the lungs. Soraya whispered, "Which way?" Elias pointed toward a distant narrow path between two cliffs. "There's an old ranger station 2 miles out. If we reach it, we can lock ourselves in. It's stronger than my cabin." Soraya tightened her grip on the babies. "Can we make it?" Elias didn't lie. "I don't know. But we try." They pushed through knee-deep snow. Elias held Soraya up with one arm while carrying the rifle in the other. His boots felt like they were made of stone. His hands were numb. Every few steps. He looked behind them. Dark shapes moved in the storm. Following. Hunting. Getting closer. The howls began along. Deep howl cut through the wind. Not human. Not anything human. Zora gasped. "They are calling each other." Elias tightened his jaw. "Then we go faster." But her legs were giving out. Elias lifted one baby so she could balance better. He held the infant against his chest, protecting it from the wind. Another howl. Closer, then another. To their left, then another. Behind them, they were surrounded. Elias's heart pounded hard. His breath shook. "We need to hide," he said. "Now?" Soraya pointed weakly toward a dark shape, a cave entrance. Half covered in snow. There was no time to think. Elias grabbed her hand and ran. Snow flew around them. The howls rose. Shadows appeared through the storm. They reached the cave just as movement blurred behind them. Elias spun. Rifle ready. A creature smaller than the first, but faster, leaped out of the storm toward them. Elias pulled the trigger. Bang. They shot echoed inside the cave. The creature fell, but more shadows appeared behind it. Many more. Elias stepped back into the cave, breathing hard. Soraya whispered, trembling, "This is not a pack. This is a hunt."